guys, so I'm here today to do the first part of my monthly book haul for August, in which I share with you the books that I have picked up second hand or borrowed from the library. That's my new system, which I did explain in last month's book hauls if you didn't see them, but yeah, second hand and library books in one video, and later in the month I will show you the review copies I've been sent and the new books that I've picked up. I have also picked up some Kindle books recently though, which I think would probably belong better in the second book haul of the month, but let me know what you think about that. First I'm going to start with the 4 books that I have picked up second hand. And the first one I bought myself in an Oxfam bookshop, and it is The Rules of Magic by Alice Hoffman. So Alice Hoffman famously wrote Practical Magic, which I haven't read, but I have seen the film adaptation of with Sandra Bullock in it quite a few years ago now. But I have heard that you don't need to have read Practical Magic to read this book, in that there may be like companion novels or set in the same universe, but like I said, not direct sequels, so you can read this separately. And it was weird because only a few days before I found this in the charity shop, I'd seen Chelsea over at Chelsea Darling Reads talk about this book and how much she enjoyed it and how much more she enjoyed it than Practical Magic, saying that like this one was far better in her opinion. And then I saw it in Oxfam and thought, oh wow, okay, that's a sign. And I do like a little witchy book. If you're not familiar, these books are about modern day witches. This one's about Susanna Owens, who has 3 children that quite clearly have magical gifts, but she wants to protect them from magic and sort of keep them away from the dangers of magic and witchcraft, so set a lot of rules and boundaries for her children. But naturally I would assume that those rules and those boundaries are broken, and potentially the dangers but also the wonders of magic become a bigger part of their life. And yeah, I've just heard really good things about this, so I'm looking forward to reading it. And then I know quite a few of you will be pleased to see this next book in my book haul, and that is Uprooted by Naomi Novik. So my flatmate's sister actually passed this along to me. She bought it second hand and read it and then passed it on to me because I was interested in reading it, and I've been interested in reading it forever. I have borrowed the audiobook from my library in the past and just never gotten around to it, but now that I have a physical copy, it needs to be read. I think I might try and read this for the Femme Fantail readathon actually later this month. But it is a fantasy novel, partially inspired by Beauty and the Beast, I think, where a young girl is sent to this wizard called the Dragon, who has like women regularly, not sacrificed to him, I think they're sent to sort of serve him. He lives by himself, and this village has to send like a girl every so often to kind of take care of his household and be his maid, I guess. And usually it's the most graceful, most beautiful girl in the village that is sent away to serve him. But this year, to everybody's surprise, including herself, it is Agnieszka that is chosen. And I assume it's about her budding relationship with this wizard and learning the true story about him. But yeah, I've heard amazing things about this book from tons of people. I enjoy Naomi Novik's Temeraire series, which is an alternative history of the Napoleonic Wars involving dragons. So I'm pretty sure I'm going to enjoy her fairy tale retellings as well. I just need to finally get around to them. I initially thought that this one was inspired by Polish folklore, which had me really excited, but I'm not sure if that's true because I think people were disagreeing about it in the comments of one of my videos. So let me know if you're more familiar with what folklore this one is based on, but yeah, I am excited. I then have a book that I don't actually know that much about but was specifically recommended to me, and that is The Waking Land by Callie Bates. So one of the booktube channels I watch and very much enjoy is Fred Weasley Dies Laughing, and she did this video not that long ago where she recommended specific booktubers specific books, and she recommended me a book which was such an honour, which of course was The Waking Land, and I completely trust her, so I thought I would keep an eye out for it. And when I found it secondhand online, I thought, treat yourself, Jean. Pick up a book that was very specifically recommended to you and see if you do love it. I mean, I'm hoping I will, and I think I will because, like I said, I have faith. But yeah, this was the book, and it is of course a fantasy novel. I feel like that is kind of a given with this cover. The blurb tells me that it's been 14 years since King Antoine took Ilana hostage. 14 years since her father's rebellion failed. 14 years spent being raised by a man who condemned her people to misery. A man she's come to love as a father. Now 20, Ilana is about to be taken prisoner once again, but this time by her father's mysterious right-hand man. So she's being taken back to her original people, despite the fact that she has obviously grown up with her like original people's enemy. and her father wants to reignite his rebellion with Alanna as a figurehead. He will tell his followers she's a legendary wild guard reborn, a sorceress who can make the very earth tremble. But what no one knows is that magic really does flow in Alanna's veins, and now she must decide which side she's on and whether she'll use her powers for mercy or revenge. It sounds super intriguing the way her loyalties seem to be split. I think that will make for a really interesting dynamic, and I'm excited to read this one. I then picked up one more secondhand book in a secondhand bookshop in Brixton that I, again, don't really know anything about except that the cover is brilliant. Look at that. Like, is this not classic fantasy meets historical fiction mass market paperback? I am just so into this. I don't even know what it's about, but it was like 80p, no, sorry, it was 95p, extortionate, no, obviously it was 95p, which is a bargain. I thought, hey, I'll give it a shot because it's book one of a series called The Blending Enthroned. The book is called Intrigues by Shannon Green, and the back says, when the masters of elemental magic, 6 extraordinary men and women, merge the primal forces they represent, the ultimate sorceress union comes to be. The Blending. Lorand, Rion, Valant, Tamrisa, Jovi and Naren, professor of the newly discovered prescient power of sight, came together to wrest a beleaguered empire from the strangling grasp of treacherous nobles and to save it from the savagery of invading armies. Now it is the benevolent 6 who reign and the common people have found a voice at last. But now, the ruling Blending are ensconced in the bloodthirsty arena of politics where their magics can hold no sway. I mean, obviously I'm not going to pretend I really know anything about this book, but it was 95p, it sounded magical and intriguing, and it had a fantastic cover, so there we go, I picked that one up. I then got 5 books out of the library, so I will get on with those, and the first one I'm currently halfway through. That is The Furies by Katie Lowe. So this one I saw reviewed over on Becca's channel and she loved it, so when I saw my library had a copy, I reserved it and was super excited when it came in for me. I am going to need to read this. I'm going to need to finish this one quite promptly because somebody else has reserved it. And this is basically if The Secret History was set in an English high school and all of the characters were girls. That's what this book is. It is about a girl who's had some really tragic things happen in her past. Her sister and her father died in an accident that she survived, and her mum has decided to send her to a private school for the first time where she makes friends with 3 slightly odd girls joining their clique, and also this kind of after school class that they attend with their art teacher. So there's the 4 teenage girls and their female art teacher, and they have this secret class where they learn all about the history of this private school and the women that founded it who were accused of witchcraft and burnt at the stake, and all the rumours surrounding the rituals and magic and past of this place. It's a really incredible combination of the reality of modern teenagehood in the UK. Obviously it's in England, I was a teenager in Scotland, but it doesn't seem terribly different. So it's very realistic in that sense, and all the struggles and ups and downs and the kind of desire to seem older than you are and be involved in things that actually make you kind of uncomfortable because of peer pressure, but also this like weird claustrophobic history that they're all getting really obsessed with, as well as potentially negative relationships with your peers, and it's really, really well written. I'm really enjoying it, but I will of course let you know my full thoughts once I'm finished. I then got out 2 non-fiction books, and the first one is The Five, The Untold Lives of the Women Killed by Jack the Ripper by Hallie Rubenhold. I've heard so many amazing things about this since it came out. This is the history of the women that Jack the Ripper killed. This is not about Jack the Ripper. This is about the women whose pasts and lives are often ignored in favour of the kind of like scandal of these women maybe being prostitutes and murdered by Jack the Ripper, even though, I mean, I think there was like no evidence that any of them actually were prostitutes. And I've heard from friends who have read and are reading this, like Lauren and Jill, that the author was able to find out a surprisingly large amount about these women's lives, yet people just don't know anything, and it's never usually included in histories of Jack the Ripper, but it's kind of giving them their voice back and making this a history of these 5 women rather than the history of a man that did terrible things. So I'm really excited to read this one. It's meant to be amazing. I then also have Angela Davis's Women, Race and Class. So my library only recently acquired this book, and it's a book that I've been wanting to read for ages, so when I saw that they had added it to their catalogue, I had to of course borrow it. I love Angela Davis. I've read a few of her books, I've watched documentaries that she's in, talks that she's given. She's just one of my favourite people of all time, and this is probably one of her most famous works. The title's pretty self-explanatory. It is an exploration of feminism and women's rights and activism through the intersections of race and class, and I always really appreciate Angela Davis's class analysis, so I have no doubt that this will be fantastic, so cannot wait to read this. And then two more books that I literally just saw in the library and thought, hey, I'll read those. The first one I have seen on BookTube. Can't remember whose channel I've seen it on, but you know, I had an awareness of it because it's been making the rounds, and that is The Queen of the Tearling. Again, it might have been Becca's channel, by Erica Johansson. And it's about Kelsey, a 19-year-old princess who it sounds like has been forced to really inherit her family's kingdom and become queen, but this kingdom is in a pretty dire state. Things are not going well, so she's basically being given the keys to a crumbling city, and it's whether she can kind of bring it back to life or whether it will destroy her as well. But then lastly was just a book that again was on my library's new in bookcase, and I thought, oh well, I'll read that. I've been getting into romance recently, so I'll give this a shot. And it's The Determined Lord Hadley by Virginia Heath. This is a Mills and Boons historical novel. I have been reading romance recently, but I don't know if I've actually read a Mills and Boons book, which I feel like is a kind of rite of passage to anybody that's getting into romance. I've heard so much about Mills and Boon. But this is another classic 1800s romance novel, but what really particularly drew me to this one on the blurb is that the female protagonist is not of the upper echelons of society. She is a woman that gets hired by this lord as part of his household. He's a barrister and he sees her standing witness at a trial and is just really impressed by her character and her self-assuredness and wants to sort of like help her out because she's in search of a job. So he does that, and naturally I assume that they fall in love. But I love the idea of like a strong female character from the lower classes who's not rich and wealthy but has a strong voice and is presumably willing to speak up for herself. So I thought I'd give this one a chance. But those are the books that I have borrowed or got in second hand recently. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Let me know if you have read or are interested in reading any of these books, and until next time, happy reading. I'll see you all again soon. Bye guys!